the recording. So for this class, this is I've got a weird echo going on. Is anyone else getting that? Just gonna, yeah, it's gone away. It must have been a little reflected sound somewhere. So this is the second of 3 lessons I've got planned that loosely wrap around this place in us, sort of series of lessons that all approach the jaw in different ways. And as with all Feldenkrais lessons, they also happen to be about a lot of other things. So it always feels a little bit like not quite accurate advertising when I say this is about the jaw, because it is about the jaw. Likewise, it's also about all sorts of other things because we're whole, you know, and interconnected. So I'm curious, having said this lesson might give you some ease around jaw, I'm really curious for what it might be for you, because it's going to be different for everybody. This is a really interesting lesson. For those of you who are new to Feldenkrais, there's 2 of you. This is not going to feel like most Feldenkrais lessons. So if this is your first experience, be curious about what else it might be like, because it's a very kind of particular experience we're doing today. Very, very fine quality of attention you're being invited into, very nuanced. We're going to be mostly on our back today. So yay. So I'm going to invite you to be however comfortable looks on your back, but I will ask for you to have either nothing under your head or something quite thin and relatively firm, kind of Alexander style, like a slim book or something. Something that is what you're aiming for when you lie down is to have your head more or less in line with your spine as it would be if you were standing. So please come and lie on your back and just tilt the screen, newbies, so that I can see you when you're lying down, so that I can just check that you're doing stuff that's not causing you discomfort. And one of the real invitations with Feldenkrais as a method, a whole kind of approach to the method, is how might we follow ease? How might we do less instead of more? How might we follow what might be less effortful? So come and lie on your back, get yourself comfortable. You can have your feet in standing or your legs long, whatever feels best. You might want to put something under your knees, because we're going to be lying on your back for a long time today. And the invitation is there for you to change whatever you need to change about your legs as we go, in order for you to feel comfortable. That looks good. Yeah, you got it, Helen. That's great. Thank you. I might actually, Helen, how might it be for you to swap yourself over so your head's in the other direction? Because most of the work we're doing today is around the face and the neck. It'd be good to see that part of you. There we go. Boom. Perfect. Thank you. That's good, Kat. Yeah. Okay. So letting yourself follow the invitation to do a little bit less. What might it mean to do a little bit less right now in this moment? And let yourself settle. A couple of you suggested you're feeling tired. So where do you know that in your body? Like, what part of you knows tiredness? Where's the evidence of tiredness inside you? And take your attention to the place where the back of the skull's meeting the floor, where we spent a lot of time there last week. And revisit that place where the back of the skull meets the floor. What is that shape? Is it like a circle or an oval, or maybe it's some other kind of shape? In your mind's eye, what's your sense of that shape? Helen, you might actually, you could maybe do with something really slim under your head, maybe just a a novel size book. Something about that size, I reckon. Or a really slim cushion. Yeah, that looks better. Hi, Florence. Hi. Just come and lay on your back. You're on your back for most of the lesson this time, so just be as comfortable as you can on your back. And noticing, see if you can draw a line that starts at the place where the skull meets the floor and follows all the way down the line of your spine to your coccyx and down through the middle of your legs. So all the way down your center line, pardon me, your center line. And I'm going to guide you through that again. So starting from the place where the back of your skull meets the floor, and then threading a line down the middle of you from the base of your skull, feeling that place where it lifts up off the ground and then becomes the neck spine, and then continues along that arch until it goes to the place where somewhere between your shoulder blades, probably it touches back down onto the mat again, then continues down that center line, down the thoracic, down somewhere in your lumbar area, down to your sacrum, your coccyx, your tailbone, and then down, continues down between your legs in the direction of somewhere between your feet. And notice what your perception of that midline is today. And try drawing one down the front of your body now. So starting in the middle of your forehead, tracking down your nose, your lips, your chin, your throat, all the way down the very center of you, over the breastbone, solar plexus, over the belly, over the pubic bone, and down between your legs. Notice if the line is straight or wonky in some places. Maybe there's some places that you're struggling to keep your attention that you want to kind of glide over. Maybe it feels like the line isn't heading in a straight direction, or it's veering off towards one foot or the other. Just notice what it is for you. And then very gently, a couple of times, following curiosity, be a spy of how it's happening. Let your head roll very slowly once to one side, and then through the center line, and then to the other side. Paying particular attention to the place where the skull is in contact with the ground. And notice see if you can get a picture of what the contour, the surface contour is like that the ground is rolling on, the head's rolling on the ground. What's the surface of the head like? Is it a bit like the surface of a moon? Any interesting forms there? Okay, and let that go. And a couple of times, very, very gently, just enough to let some air out of the mouth. Let the jaw softly open a couple of times and close a couple of times. So open and close like a little fish with as little effort as possible. Okay, let that go. And now taking very gentle fingertips, gentle as if you're touching a baby. You're not wanting to do a massage with your fingertips. Bring your very, very gentle, sensitive fingers to the place where, you know, that little nub that kind of partly covers the ear hole. So that little kind of lump that sticks up in the ear holes, and then move your fingers directly in front of those, and you'll be more or less on the jaw joint, the hinge joint of the jaw. And you can test it out by opening and closing the jaw a couple of times. Press so lightly that you're just using your fingers to investigate what movement is taking place in that joint as you're opening and closing the jaw. What's happening there? And continuing for as long as it's easy with this. If your fingers were detectives and were able to, just without needing to do anything, all they are doing is receiving information. They're not pressing or trying to push anything. They're just receiving what is happening. How might you describe, could you get an internal kind of picture of what's happening with the jaw as it opens and closes? Is it even on both sides, for example? So your fingers should be right in front of the ridge of the ear there. You'll feel it when you've got it. Okay, let that go. Take a little rest. Okay, and now taking your attention now to the cavity of your mouth. And with the tongue, just notice that with the tip of the tongue, you can touch the back of the front teeth and the back of the lower teeth. Just push it once or twice, once into the back of the upper teeth and back of the front upper teeth and the front lower teeth. And using your tongue as kind of a photographer or a videographer. So like there's an eye in the tongue. Sensing, feeling, seeing, listening with the tongue. And now, could you draw a line using your tongue from the place behind the front upper teeth, all right across the arch, a straight line that heads all the way down in the direction of your tonsils, just as far as you can go without choking yourself or feeling uncomfortable, and then back to that place behind the front teeth. It's like you're describing the arch of the palate along the midline, like the midline we were just drawing on our whole bodies. Notice if there's anything that wants to happen in the jaw to allow you to go a little bit further towards, with the tip of the tongue towards the back of the palate. If maybe opening the mouth a little bit more allows a little bit more, the tongue to travel a little bit further. But stay inside what's easy. Okay, great. And the next time you're passing the front of the teeth, see if you can curl the tongue under itself, take the tongue down to the lower set of teeth at the front and curl it under itself so that you're kind of tucking the tongue down the midline in the lower part of the jaw, the lower part of the mouth. And then it sort of means you're extending that cardinal line or that midline all the way up from somewhere behind in the direction of your tonsils with the tip of the tongue along the arch of the palate down to the front of the top teeth and the bottom teeth and then under the tongue. And see if you can make that movement really smooth and easy. Okay, and take a little pause there. I mentioned this to others, Florence, but just so that you know, we're going to be on our back for most of the lesson. So if you want to move your legs at any time to get as comfortable as you like on your back, you're welcome to do that. Just follow what feels comfy. Great. Okay, and coming back to this experiment of drawing a midline with your tongue from all the way over the top of the palate, coming down past the teeth, down into the bottom of behind the tongue and then up. Doing that a few times. And this time, notice what's going on with the lower part of your jaw as you continue with that. Just continue with the movement, but let what the tongue's doing go in the background and just bring your attention down to what's happening with the jaw as you continue with that movement. And now bring one finger really softly, or maybe your thumb, to the place underneath the chin in the lower jaw and continue with that movement. And notice what's happening. Notice the activity that's happening in there. Notice that as you bring the tongue upwards towards that the place of the tonsils of the soft palate, that the tongue pushes down and the jaw moves away. Can you feel that? There's a little bit more tension there in the tongue. You can feel it in that muscle underneath the tongue. And then as you curl the tongue under itself, it softens, which is perhaps the opposite to what you might intuitively think, or it was for me. Can everyone feel that? And continue with that whilst you keep your finger there on the connection of the tongue to underneath the chin. So continue holding that there. And notice what you're doing with your breathing as you continue with that. Is there a point at which you hold the breath or maybe pause the breath? Which places do you stop breathing? Is it the place where the muscle underneath the chin is most strained? Or is it the place where the tongue's curled back under itself? Or maybe somewhere else? And now, how might you go about organizing it so that whilst you continue that movement with the tongue, there's less strain in that place where your finger's touching underneath your chin? How might you minimize that strain? Might it be possible for there to be no strain there? And a couple of times, go back to straining there. So going into the strain and then taking the strain away as you continue with that movement with the tongue. And notice, is there anything happening in the lower part of the abdomen relating to your breathing that is showing up when there's strain and then disappearing when there's not strain? Just to investigate that a little bit. It's quite nuanced and it will be subtle. It's very hard for the lower part of the abdomen to be soft when the tongue is in that really strained place. And that's to do with an incredible network of fascial connection that runs all the way down the front of our flexors, down the front of us, through the center of us. Okay, and let that go. Take a rest. Let yourself have a full rest and stop all you're doing. All your doings, let them all go. Okay, and coming back to this movement again with the tongue and bringing your finger to this place under the jaw so that you can feel what's happening with the strain there. And now, without hurting yourself, so not pushing into so much effort that you're causing injury, try pushing the strain even more so that you're sort of trying to push the finger away as you push the top of the tongue towards the upper palate, the soft palate. And now see if there's something you can feel happening in the abdomen. If it becomes a little clearer, how that strain kind of transfers further deeply into the front of you. Maybe there's somewhere that you're aware of the breathing being a little more difficult to stay in flow. Okay, and let that go and take a mini pause. Let some breathing happen softly and naturally again. Okay, and now with using the sense of an eye in the tip of the tongue or an ear in the tip of the tongue, taking it all the way across that arch towards that soft palate again, past that little ridge until you can feel the soft palate. And now, can you, in your mind's eye, imagine that you can feel the nostrils above that place where your tongue, the tip of your tongue is? And go ahead and let the tip of your tongue go towards the right side slightly. So you're focusing your attention with the eye on the tip of your tongue on the nostril and the air coming through that right nostril. Can you feel or imagine that you can sense the air coming in through that right nostril with the tip of your tongue? Or at least, if you can't get a sense of the air itself, could you imagine that you might? Almost like that surface of the soft palate is like a drum. So the tip of the tongue's all the way back on the right-hand side, almost like underneath the right ear. Okay, and take as many pauses as you want with this because it can cause some strain in the throat. take as many little rests as you like. It's very, very detailed, specific attention, this work, and it can be quite exhausting for the brain in a very specific kind of way, an unusual way, not like having run up and down stairs for half an hour, but very different kind of exhaustion. Okay, so now taking the tongue to that back right-hand upper part, again, the place where you could feel the air coming in through that right nostril. And now choose a color. What you're going to do with the tip of the tongue is paint along the right side of the upper palate from the back rightmost part where you could feel the air coming in through the nostrils, and then heading out towards the back teeth. So you're heading out laterally, out towards the teeth, and then back to the center line, and then a little bit further along towards maybe the not quite back teeth, and then back to the center line. And just continue coloring in. Be really clear about what the color is, what kind of paintbrush your tongue is, making sure you don't miss any bits, making it slow and very clear, like kind of coloring in the lines kind of feeling. And so gradually filling in the whole right side of the palette with this color that you've chosen, using the tip of the tongue. Okay, great. And then continuing using this color, can you go across down to the lower right teeth, the bottom right teeth, and do the same thing, starting right at the back of the mouth, as far back as the tongue can curl, and coloring in all of that part. Notice if there's any parasitic movement creeping into the jaw. What can you soften, make a little easier? Now, if there's any little areas that felt like you skipped over them because you were unable to keep your attention there, or you got a little bit bored or distracted, go back over any areas that felt like you kind of cheated yourself or were unable to bring your attention there. Or any areas that really feel fascinating to you. Little ridges, landscapes. Okay, and let that go. Take a rest. Okay, and now we're going to do something even trippier. In your imagination, I'd like you to imagine that you're bringing your right finger inside your mouth, and then with the finger, what you're doing is you're following the upper teeth around from the middle front right tooth into that empty space around the right side between the mouth, the teeth and the cheek, just on the right side. If you are struggling to imagine it, you can go ahead and use your finger. It's no big deal. It's just that some people find it not very pleasant to have their finger in their mouth. But it's really up to you whether you do it in imagination or not. If you can picture it, go for it. So one tooth at a time, investigating that space where the gum meets the arch that rolls over into the cheek. Only on the right-hand side. All the way back until you can get to those wisdom teeth, if you've still got them. You can choose a color if you like to be painting with your finger. Okay, and let that go and take a rest. And notice what your sense of the right side of your face is now compared to your left side. Is there anything that feels different between your right eye and your left eye, just from behind your closed eyelids? Is there any different experience in the right side of your jaw compared to your left side of your jaw? Maybe it feels like space, or maybe it feels more like just an awareness. Maybe there's more of a sense of a clearer visual map of that area, or maybe it feels like there's more ease. And take your fingertips back to that hinge that we found before, right in front of the middle part of your ear, right in the jaw hinge there. And once or twice, let the jaw open and close, and notice if there's anything different about how that's happening now. On the right-hand side compared to the left-hand side, or maybe it's similar. Just notice what it is. Okay, great. And let that go. And now taking the tongue all the way back to the left side of the palate, and noticing, first of all, if you can feel a sense of the breath coming in through that nostril. And if you can't feel it, don't worry, just imagine you can. And you might even like to imagine the pathway of that nostril leading from the tip of your tongue up and down the nose. And then choose a color for this side and go ahead and draw from the midline at the back over towards those back teeth, and then back to the midline, and then over towards a slightly further front teeth, just one at a time, making sure you get it all in, color it all in with the color of your choice until you get all the way to those front teeth. And notice if there's any areas where you're unwilling to pay attention, or whether you skip over it or it feels a bit glitchy. And just go visit that place again. And then go ahead and follow down so the tongue can curl over itself, and you can begin to extend the color down to the bottom left part of the mouth there, on the inside of the teeth, underneath the tongue, all of the areas there. Be really thorough. The places between each of the teeth. And let that go. And now again, with imaginary finger, the left index finger, passing it between the teeth and the cheek on the left side. So start with the upper teeth. And in this side, you might also like to go to the lower teeth. Just pass over all the teeth. Start with the upper and then head down to the lower in your mind's eye with an imaginary index finger. Okay, and let that go. And now, again, taking your attention inside the mouth cavity and inside the teeth, particularly in the top palate, the top lot of teeth, and taking your attention to the backmost teeth on the upper part of your mouth, in the upper jaw. And can you listen without using your tongue, just using your mind's eye and your imagination? Can you listen to the distance between the two back wisdom teeth? Can you picture how far that is without like measuring it physically with your tongue or your fingers? You might like to draw a line between those two backmost teeth. How far away are they from each other? And then drawing a line between the next backmost teeth, so the penultimate back. This is very detailed work. It requires really fine attention. And then listening to the distance between the teeth that are third from the back. And fourth from the back. That's for most people, that'll be your canine teeth. Some people not. And then the next ones, for some people, that'll be your canines. And then all the way until you can get to the front teeth. Great. And now do the same thing with the lower jaw. So starting with the backmost teeth, what is your experience of the space just by listening with your imagination and your mind's eye of the space between the back two teeth? And then the next row, next lot. And the next. This experiment is different depending on whether you've had your wisdom teeth out or not. So it'll be different for everyone. Just take your time, one row of teeth at a time until you get to the front ones. So if you were to guess which dimensions of the mouth were the widest, which might they be? Which direction feels like it has the most width? Is it the direction from your lips to the back of your tongue? Is it the direction from your cheek to your cheek? Is it the direction from one diagonal to the other, maybe? Okay, and let that go. And now a couple of times, take a breath in through the nostrils. And see if you can feel the place where the air, it is possible to feel the breath through the nostrils in the mouth cavity, but it's a particular kind of way of breathing that we don't really do culturally very much. It's neither good nor bad, it's just not done often for all sorts of reasons. See if you can detect the effect of the air on the tongue somehow. Is there any way that you can organize it so that rather than breathing directly into the throat, you're able to breathe into the mouth, breathe air through the nostrils into the mouth? You feel the effect of the air, the coolness of the air touching the back of the throat there. It'll feel a little bit like you're breathing through the nostrils and the mouth at the same time. It's an unusual feeling. And then also notice when you then exhale through the nostrils, where you can feel the air passing there. Does it feel like it's happening near the back of the teeth or near the front of the teeth? Where do you notice it? Okay, let that go. And now try closing the nostrils, not with your fingers, just from inside. And force the air as it comes out, and you'll feel the eardrums inflate a little bit. It's a bit like how sometimes you do on planes when the air pressure changes. And so there's these tiny holes in the ear that are connected to all of the breath cavities inside your skull. Pretty interesting. We don't really think about the ears breathing much, being connected to our breathing much. So you can feel the two eardrums inflating slightly. Don't push it. Don't let your ears pop or anything. You can feel your eardrums inflating slightly because the ears have an entry into the mouth. Can you feel, sense, picture where that entry might be? You might get a clearer map of it by trying that experiment of closing the nostrils a few times, but don't do it so much that you're popping your ears, just so that you can feel a little bit of the pressure there. These parts of the ears are called the eustachian canals. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but where is that passage, do you think, based on your sensation? Okay, and let that go and just breathe normally. Okay, and now taking your tongue back to that place in the top of the soft palate. And remember, we found that place before where you could sense, or imagine you could sense, the breathing through both the left and the right nostrils. See if you can place your tongue in such a relationship with that soft palate that you might be able to imagine into the nostrils of the skeleton. And even if you can't feel it, can you imagine? Are they closer to the front, near the front teeth, or are they closer to the back teeth? Really picture in your mind's eye where those spaces in the nose are on a skeleton. And where might the approximate equivalence be in the roof of your mouth? Go ahead and feel, if you like, you can put your fingers on the bridge of your nose there and feel those little spaces either side of the ridge of your nose that are the skeletal structures of the nostrils before the cartilage. You feel those little spaces. So it's actually quite front, isn't it? So where might the equivalent in the palate be for those, if you were aiming to talk to those places from beneath the front of the palate with your tongue? And what kind of distance is that between where those spaces are and where the tongue is touching on the roof of the mouth? And now, can you take that little eye in the end of the tongue to the place that feels like it's most proximal to that place where you imagined the ear was receiving air, or you felt that the ear was receiving air. So where might you guess is the closest place you could put the tip of the tongue in relationship to that sense of air coming in and out of the eardrum or pressing against the eardrum? Just try with the right ear first. Picture that ear canal and find the proximal place in the tongue. Great. And then find the left one. And how far away from the tip of the tongue do you think that ear canal is? What's that sense? Does it feel like it's quite far back? I mean, my sense is that it feels, or it appears to be, very far backwards than where it actually is. There's something about how oriented our nervous system is towards our face, the front of our face. It makes it feel quite far back. But in actual fact, it's probably only about an inch. Okay, let that go and take a big rest. You've deserved it. Okay, now bring the feet to standing if they're not already. So your knees are in the air, feet are standing. Stay laying on your back. And gently, a couple of times, let the jaw softly open a few times, just like that fish underwater kind of feeling. Softly as you can manage. Just let the hinge of the bottom jaw softly open and close a few times. Notice if there's something a little softer in the front of you now. Really, this lesson is secretly all about the tongue and its connection all the way down the front of you. Is there something maybe softer in your sense of the sternum, around the clavicle and the front of the throat as you continue with that soft movement? And now bringing your fingertips back to that place in front of the ear, just really softly, just delicately sensing as you continue to open and close the jaw with a lovely soft tongue. Notice what you notice. Maybe it's a little less poppy, a little less jumpy. Maybe there's more of a glide and less of a pop. Okay, let that go. Let your arms go. And let your legs be however you'd like them to be. Now bringing your tongue to a place in the top of the palate where you think it might be best to touch your brain from. Obviously, that's not possible. But if you were to bring your tongue to the place that feels like it's closest to where you think the brain might be able to be, like the shortest distance from your brain to the tip of the tongue, where might that be? And can you use your tongue as a measurement to guess how far it is from the from the roof of the mouth to the top of the skull. How much distance is that? And can you get, when babies are born, there's a little soft part of the top of the skull right in the center that's not closed over yet. See if you can feel, listen, sense where that might be by investigating with the tip of the tongue, the eye at the end of the tongue, and the top of the palate. Okay, and let that go. And now there's a really interesting relationship between the mouth and the eyes. The visual cortex, the optic nerve flows across very close to the top palate, the upper palate. So how might it be to, using the eye at the tip of your tongue, the sensation at the tip of your tongue, find the back of your left eyeball. And can you imagine like using the tongue to gently create some space in the back of your right eyeball? It doesn't have to make any sense. You don't have to exactly know what you're doing. See if you can just go with the imaginative experiment. The thing with this class is the thing that you think you're doing isn't the thing you end up really doing anyway. This is all secretly looking at something else. Okay, and then can you keep your tongue on the place where you can get the most sense of that right eye? And then gently let your gaze go from the left to the right slightly. And continue letting your gaze go left to right, just a little bit. You don't have to go all the way to the right and the left because that'll just make you dizzy. Just a little bit. Where can you get the most sense of your eyes moving using that felt sense in the tip of your tongue? You can do it from behind closed eyes if you like. That's easier. Is there a place that you can kind of sense the movement of your eyes on the right-hand side from the tip, using the tip of the tongue as the sensory organ? Is it stronger and more kind of audible or visible to the tongue further back in the soft palate? Okay, and let that go. And now taking your tongue to a place where you can get a sense of the back of the left eye now. And almost like you're massaging the back of the left eye in your imagination using the tip of the tongue. And then when you find a place that feels like it's the most sensitive place, or the place that makes the most sense for being in relationship with that left eye, then go ahead and let the eyes move from left to right a few times, softly, softly, gently, gently. And see if you can imagine that you might be able to feel the movement of the eye using that very fine perception of the tip of the tongue. Okay, great. And let that go. Take a rest. Let your legs be long and your arms be long. Oh, actually, yeah, if you lower back, some of you are doing something that I feel like is probably a good idea. Let your knees come towards your chest a little bit. Let your feet come off the ground. Let your knees come towards the chest, and just take a little moment there to enjoy rolling and rocking a little bit, just to find some comfort, because you've been lying on your back for a long time. And then take a little moment before you roll to one side and come to sitting to come back to noticing what it feels like now behind your eyes, in your jaw, in your mouth cavity, in your tongue. How far does your tongue go? Where does your tongue start and where does it stop? Is there a sense? I had this sense after I did this lesson that my tongue went all the way down to my solar plexus. Where does your tongue start and where does it stop? And what's the relationship of the tongue to the jaw wanting to open and close a little bit? So just a couple of times revisiting that, softly opening and closing the jaw. Notice if there's some ease in the tongue that wasn't there before, some ease in the tissue all around the throat, maybe some more space in the jaw itself, maybe some space behind the eyes. So this lesson's all about doing small things better, small things more well than trying to go for more movement in the jaw. So rolling to one side, really gently roll to one side and come to sitting. First of all, don't look at the screen yet. Keep your gaze inward. And then when you're ready, in fact, yeah, you might want to play around a little bit with that soft tongue, soft jaw, and soft eyes when you're in sitting for a moment. And then taking a moment to come all the way to standing so that you can try how this all feels in standing. Come onto the hard floor if you've got one. Now, if you've got, try letting your weight shift from side to side. Try taking a look out towards the horizon. I know it's dark where you are, but notice if there's something that's different about how you are looking out of yourself towards the world. And you might want to go take a look in the mirror before we come to our sharing session. And notice if you can see anything that's different about the tonus in your face, especially the muscles around your mouth and throat, the tiny muscles around your eyes. Okay, and coming back, I'm going to wave goodbye now to the people who are doing the recording only, because the sharing is just for the people who are here. So thank you, people doing the recording. I hope you enjoyed it. Look forward to hearing about how you found it, and see you soon.